Hello Indie Game fans, while we had a little bit of a slow start to the year, as is the case in most Januaries, indie developers never disappoint, with some excellent experiences and even one that I'm sure will make the Game of the Year list already, so see what are the best games of January 2022. Let's begin with Blade Assault, a pixel art roguelike platformer that comes to us from a South Korean developer, where this is everything that I would want from a game in this genre. It has quite a classic cyberpunk dystopia setting, where you're fighting against the corrupt elite military that resides at the highest level of this literally tiered city, battling your way out of the undercity and taking the fight to them. There are 3 playable characters which are unique and different, where it does learn from and borrow elements from games like Dead Cells, Hades, Risk of Rain, 30XX, Skull the Hero Slayer and more, which results in a pretty good game. For the quality of this title, it is a little under the radar, not doing bad by any means, but still lagging behind in popularity as compared to some of its inspirations, so if you love this genre like me, do give it a go. Adventure or puzzle games don't usually get tremendously popular since they are targeted at a relatively niche community, which is why Strange Horticulture is amazing, getting an excellent reception from critics and players alike, where they did make an amazing narrated trailer, so I'll leave you to it.
The people of Windermere visit Strange Horticulture with many requests. Some seek remedies for their health, or to help them sleep. Some need the perfect gift to make a new friend. Some simply wish to scratch the ears of the store's cat, Hellebore. All are searching for something. As for me, I spend my days collecting and identifying the unusual plants of this land. Winterbore to repel insects, Pavilium to open any lock, Jacob's Worth to find what is lost, Daisy Dog to grant courage, Long Veracund to lift a curse. Most who visit my shop have small and simple needs, though sometimes they can be mischievous, even sinister. Occasionally their stories intertwine, offering me a glimpse at larger events. I aim to serve them all with wisdom and discretion. But even I can be swept into the deeper and darker mysteries of Windermere. There are whispers that the leader of the local witches' coven has died under mysterious circumstances. Circumstances that happen to require the expertise of a horticulturist. From hypnotic hallucinogens to powerful poisons, I can use my plants to influence the mysteries around me. For good or for ill.
Welcome aboard the LCB-1 Mining and Research Station, and congratulations on being selected to join the security and scouting team in this state-of-the-art underwater high-security facility. Expect a lot more scouting than security, but let me be clear, it is your job to keep the eggheads and gearheads safe.
I think that this innocuous launch trailer for Hidden Deep is ingenious, since it frames it as a run-of-the-mill training video introducing a new employee to this sub-oceanic mining and research facility, but as you may suspect, things are certainly not as they seem. You're playing as a team of soldiers and engineers sent to re-establish contact with an earlier group of researchers that went radio silent, and with inspiration from movies like Aliens and The Thing, of course, something terrible has happened. Interestingly, this plays something like The Lost Vikings in single player, where you're able to switch between the different characters, engineers to operate machinery, soldiers to fight and so on, where everyone is pretty fragile and has things like fall damage, so it certainly has very interesting pacing. It is still in early access, but it's pretty good so far, just lacking in more levels and content, but certainly one for fans of the genre.
The corporation also has a few special missions available if you want to make some extra cash. Some you can tackle on your own, others will require a full team. Either way, expect them to be tough jobs. And yes, the corporation has armed us to the teeth, but it's mostly for show. No doubt you're going to hear a bunch of spooky rumors about the lower-level research facility from grunts who haven't seen the light of day in months. Don't get paranoid. If you keep your head down and do your job, you'll be just fine. LCB-1? Come in, LCB-1. LCB-1, this is surface control. Please come in.
I think that French developer and publisher Dotemu has one of the most interesting business models in that they have somehow managed to work with Japanese studios and to borrow their IP to make sequels of games that last had their release in the 90s, where the fact that Windjammers 2 even exists is quite an amazing thing. The original released in arcades in 1994, so that's 28 years, where the sequel looks to bring back that same frenetic sports frisbee action, but only bigger and better. Depending on who you ask, this is a double-edged sword, since the original was simple enough to be a pick-up-and-play type of game, while the sequel in comparison has a lot of depth in mechanics and systems. As such, it does have a little bit more of a fighting game vibe and seems like it was built for the competitive tournament scene, perhaps at the expense of the everyday player, but what a miracle this title really is. One of the most amazing first-person Metroidvanias in recent years is Supraland from 2019, taking place in a miniature sandbox, where your character is also shrunk down to match, where the developers are back with 6 inches under. Not quite a DLC or expansion pack, and not quite a full-on sequel as well. Rather, the developers consider this to be Supraland 1.5 in that while there are some returning elements from the first game, there are new features and mechanics as well, while I love the unlocking of new tools to solve puzzles and to get to new areas and so on. Another impressive entry for the team, which made me even more excited for their next project. One of the more unique and perhaps darkly disturbing entries that has really taken off is Needy Streamer Overload, a management sim visual novel that does remind me of Reigns, where you're guiding a young girl with dreams of becoming internet famous. The story takes place over a month or so, where our protagonist wants to reach 1 million subscribers but does seem to be mentally ill, where the concept of being a streamer really does mess with this even more. You have to manage several stats like mental darkness, stress levels, affection, and so on, choosing responses to online comments and choices of offline activities, but content warning, it does get pretty dark with instances of self-harm in certain cases, so certainly be warned going into this. If you love tactical titles, Alina of the Arena will certainly be of interest since it is basically Into the Breach meets Slay the Spire. While reductive in description, I think that this rings true with positional combat, enemies telegraphing attacks, and even the ability to manipulate enemies into attacking each other. It is, of course, focused on a single character instead of 3 max, but where your moves are restricted by the cards that you draw. I love the pixel art sprites as well, and I'm excited to see where this goes in early access.
Good evening, I'm Jeremy Donaldson. Our main story is tonight, but first, the votes are in and it's a decisive win for Advance.
Yes, of course, Fans of the channel would have seen Not for broadcast on the channel a number of times already, since they did kindly sponsor a video and even gave me free keys to do a giveaway with. But this game is really unique and great, which makes it not to be missed. You are producing a nightly live news show, having to switch between cameras, bleeping out vulgarities and cutting to commercials, all while monitoring many screens and buttons and levers, which is such an interesting gaming experience. The full motion video and acting is just right for this type of game, not prestige television by any means, but wonderful performances all around, even managing to tell a larger story around the nightly news program and the happenings in the country. As such, it has been quite a journey for this game through early access, where the developers made this through the pandemic, which, as you can imagine with filming and cameras and such, was quite the challenge, so I love the amount of success that this team has had, which is very well deserved.
Please, we can't show this. Cut to the ads.
Give us a hug.
If you fire a single shot, initial estimates put the death toll into the millions. Mr. Blundercatch, I understand you're upset, but we can...
Jesus!
Good job, everybody!
Well, if that doesn't distract you from the world outside, I don't know what will.
That's all coming up on tonight's
National Nightly News.
Out of all the games on this list, I'm pretty amazed that the most popular one, in terms of Steam reviews, is actually Warm Snow, an action roguelite that comes to us from a Chinese developer. While there are some things that are lost in translation, the localization works in terms of enabling you to play the game with some amazing hand-drawn art. While I wouldn't quite call this the second coming of Hades, the inspiration is pretty clear, where they managed to nail the action portion of the game. As such, if you love roguelites, I would highly recommend that you give this a go, but I love seeing successes of developers from non-traditional countries as well. And of course, the obvious pick that nails the indie game vibe and gameplay is Nobody Saves the World, coming to us from developer Drinkbox Studios, who are best known for the Guacamelee series of Metroidvanias that I love. This is a Zelda-style action-adventure title, but where you're able to transform into multiple forms, eventually being able to mix and match their abilities on the fly. It is a video game as video game in that there are so many meters and objectives for every form, where it is so very satisfying to see numbers go up, which makes you keep playing and playing and playing. I love the art style as well, which is fresh and different from their previous work, so of course, this takes the #1 spot. For more action-adventure titles, watch these videos and I will see you after the jump.